Well, since I mentioned ADHD yesterday, I figured I'd do kind of a combination ADHD and writing commentary. One of the things that I know about ADHD is that we absolutely need structure and we absolutely hate structure, which means most ADHD writers are pantsers. And as nice as that is, it means that we oftentimes lose the thread and then our novel ends up a complete disaster because we have no idea what the structure is supposed to be. I like to use the beat sheet in order to create structure because it gives me the opportunity to put down the big plot points while also leaving it open and loose enough for me to come up with all the ideas in between, which is really important for me because having some kind of signposts and some kind of guide is of extreme value because without that, I never get anything written. Also, I cleaned my desk last night. Look how pretty. Well, mostly clean anyway. So that's something that I figured might be helpful. Bye! It's spooky season, so filters? Yes, let's do filters. For those of you who don't think about it too much, I know I keep harping on this, but authorship is in fact a business. And this is me getting ready for my book to come out in January, I think? Yeah, January 13th. So part of that is doing things like this. Also, people like to think editors are the devil. This time I'm proving them right. I also just watched the Lucifer finale, so I'm kind of emotional. Oh, the feels. Alright, so I keep talking about how authorship's a business, and that is super important to realize because it means the difference between success and failure. If you don't market your book and you aren't good at being an author, as far as the business end of things goes, nobody's gonna know you exist and you're never gonna sell any copies, which is going to be tragic for you because we put hundreds and hundreds of hours into writing these things. And spending all that time and trying to publish it and then having it be a complete flop that's a Shakespearean tragedy right there, my dude. So with that in mind, make sure you treat your authorship as this is a side hustle. This is your job. You're getting paid for this. Act like it. So something a lot of authors never actually think about or really know anything about is typesetting. It is the process where we take your manuscript and make it look like a book. Also, humidity hair. There's nothing I can do about it. It just does this. I am currently in typesetting hell. I love this book. I love this author. I also kind of want to set it on fire because there are 3 different fonts in this book. 4, actually, if you count the chapter headers. Let me show you. Chapter header is 1. Then we have the main body of the text, which is Georgia. That's 2. Marriage chat. This thing. 3. Tells. 4. These are all formatted differently. I am losing my mind. There are a lot of pages of this. Now, I love the author, I love the book, I love everything about this, except for typesetting it. Please, when you make your book, think of the typesetters. Think of us. We need help. You get me half awake this morning because somebody decided to piss me off before I've had my tea. That was a mistake. I got a message today from somebody who said, "Hey, I want to publish my book. It'll be a way to make some quick money." And I laughed and I laughed and laughed, and then I stabbed them to death. Not really, but I wish. Writing a book is not going to bring you any quick money. Throwing something mediocre on Amazon just for funsies is not going to make you any quick money, nor will it bring you fame. In fact, it will cost you money and be a disaster. So please don't do that. Please. There are enough people trying to do that. That sound you hear in the background is my tea coming to a boil. I wasn't joking when I said somebody pissed me off before I had my tea. My desk is a mess. I don't care. I am salty today. Authors, please. Stop spamming hashtags with links to your book with no description and just a link. Or a crap ton of hashtags. Or the same thing over and over again. It's really, really annoying and just gets you on a one-way trip to Mutesville. It deletes your audience. It means nobody's going to want to engage with you and you're not going to be successful. In order to be successful at doing this kind of marketing, you need to actually engage with people. Have conversations, give and receive advice. Don't post about your book more than a couple of times a week, or even if you do it once a day, that's fine. But don't do it constantly. And for the love of God, please don't use the same hashtags every time, because all it does is flood the hashtags and drowns out everybody else, and not in a good way, because I'm not buying somebody's book who behaves that way. I'm just not. Cut it out. Hi, it's me again, only slightly less salty than yesterday. Slightly. There is this pernicious rumor going around in writing communities that makes me want to scream every time I see it. There is a belief out there that when you sign with a publisher, the publisher will do all of your marketing. all of it. This is not true. This is, in fact, very far from true. Because a publisher's not going to spend that much time marketing your book. Readers want to hear from you, the author, not the publisher. How many times in your reading have you ever come across a post by Tor Fantasy and you're like, ooh, I must read this post by Tor Fantasy? No, you don't. You want to hear about Jim Butcher, or Anne McCaffrey, or Neil Gaiman. You want to read about them. You don't want to read about the publisher. A publisher's not going to do your marketing for you. Yes, they will support your marketing. Yes, they will support you. But they're not going to do it for you. You still have to do it yourself. Honest. Editors drink for a lot of reasons. But one of them is paragraphs that go on over 300 words and say nothing. I don't have words for that kind of thing. And, I mean, I do have words, but most of them aren't very friendly, and I'm trying not to be a jerk this time. Please don't do that. Keep your paragraphs concise. Now, let me see, look what it does to my hair. Let me put this in context for you. The average page of a book is 250 words long. For a print book, most of them. So if your paragraphs are, on average, longer than the page of a book, you are doing it wrong. Please don't do that. Also, it makes it very, very much not disability accessible, because I cannot read paragraphs that long. Not because I'm not smart, but because I'm dyslexic. And when we start putting paragraphs that long in books, I stop being able to read them, because then it turns into word salad. As if it wasn't already. So please, save me. And also contribute to Monster. Not losing her mom too early, because that would be tragic. But if you're starting to see your pages, your paragraphs just grow, remember a paragraph is a single thought, just one. 3 to 5 sentences, for the most part. Now, I'm not going to say there's anything wrong inherently with the Victorian style of writing more bigger paragraphs. My hair's just getting bigger and bigger as this video goes. I'm not saying there's anything inherently wrong with that, other than the fact that I can't read it. Don't want to, necessarily, because, I mean, I might not want to, but I can't. But think about readability, because if your book isn't readable, people aren't going to read it. And we don't live in the Victorian period anymore, so those paragraphs kind of went out of style for a reason. And it's not because people's attention spans are shorter. Yes, I have ADHD, but that's not the problem here. So please, please, paragraphs are one thought, 3 to 5 sentences, no longer than that. Save an editor, and save the monster. Save the monster. Salty editor time, now with extra salt. I'm actually genuinely pissed off this time. More so than usual. So I'm in this writing group where somebody was talking about their intentions to publish, and that they were trying to start a publishing company and were giving out 50% royalties, which made me ask a couple questions, because that's not normal, and I wanted to make sure this guy wasn't setting himself up for misery. Turns out he wasn't. He knew what he was doing, and he and I had a very pleasant exchange. No problems with that guy. But then this idiot comes in, and so the number I threw out that it costs me to publish a book is about 10 grand. Through 3 rounds of editing with professional editors, which cost between $2,000 to $3,000 a piece, and there's 3 rounds of it, so that's just $6,000 in editing alone. Then you have typesetting, then you have cover design, then you have ISBNs, then you have uploading things to places. For example, Ingram Spark, they charge money. There's a whole bunch of stuff, so it costs about $10,000 in actual money and time to publish a book the way I do it. This guy comes in and starts arguing about how the number that I was putting up was unbelievable, and it was ridiculous, and how he can do it for half that price, and started talking about how his editing is so much cheaper and all this other stuff, and also he does all of his formatting on Vellum and everything else, which is fine. For an indie published author, if you're self-publishing your book, you don't need to spend $10,000 to have a reasonable book put out there. I'm not going to tell you you are. This person was trying to be an indie publisher, like publish other people's books, which means that they're doing things at a different level than an indie published author who may or may not be trying to save a lot of money to start with. So I'm not talking down about his process, But he starts talking to me about this, and I'm like, look, okay, here's where I'm getting my data, and I show him the EFA and some other places. Like, no, this is how much about on average it costs to do these things. And he starts talking down to me, and I'm like, look, buddy, I know what I'm talking about. And he starts going on about how, well, I've published 17 books in 2 years, so I'm an expert. And I'm like, no, buddy, no, you're fucking not. I've been doing this for literally 6 times longer than you, and I've probably put out a few more books than you. I know what I'm talking about. I'm not fucking around. Can you do it cheaper? Sure. But if you're publishing other people's books and not your own, you shouldn't do it cheaper. So, yeah. Don't talk down to editors. We get really fucking pissed off. And yes, it does cost about $10,000 of investment into each book we publish. Whether that's time and energy on my part, because yeah, I'm not charging full market value for my time to my publishing company, because otherwise we would literally never earn out our advances. So, yeah. I know what I'm talking about, dude. Sit down and shut up. Yet another person has pissed the editor off before she's had her tea. My hair is even crazy. My hair gets crazier every time I do a video. I don't know why. So, I'm in a group on Facebook for fans of urban fantasy. That's the name of the group. So it's an urban fantasy collective. And this guy posts a cover that he's working on and is really excited about for his book. Cool. He wanted feedback on who would like this and who'd buy it. Cool. Great. The book is about Artemis, the goddess of the hunt in Greek mythology. And he says that it is dungeon delving adventure. You know, he talks about, like, if you like D&D and all this other stuff, you will enjoy this book, and it's, you know, high fantasy adventure sort of thing with some sex. Cool. I read stuff like that all the time. I'm into that. I run D&D. I'm the target market here, or at least one of them. And he posts this cover, and it's one of those women in a really, really, like, awkward, you can't do this if you have a spine superhero poses, with a bow wearing nothing but a ribbon. Now, there are a few problems with this. One, Artemis was a goddess of virginity and female empowerment and so on, so the fact that he hypersexualizes Artemis is questionable, but whatever. And the pose, I mean, you can't draw a bow in that pose, and the artist has her, like, with the bow fletching to her cheek, practically, and it's like, physics says otherwise, and so does biology, but fine. And I make these comments to him. I say, hey, if you are writing nothing but an erotic comic for men, this cover does the work. I mean, but it's supposed to be a novel, and if it's about what you said it's about, it doesn't show it on the cover. It's just an erotic comic for men on the cover. And I make these comments, and he's like, oh, sweetie, you're not my target market. And I'm like, pardon the fuck out of me. I'm a DM and have been for over 5 years now. Exclusively. We're not even talking about how long I've been playing D&D. I've been playing D&D since 2002, so almost 20 years. I'm a fantasy novelist. I love European history. I'm a historian. I like sex books. There's a whole lot of things in there that I like, and this cover is not making me think that any of this is going to be written for someone like me, because the woman is horribly objectified on the cover. And even if, you know, ignoring the fact that Artemis is a goddess of virginity, we're going to just set that aside here because we're talking fantasy, so fine, whatever. But it makes me think that this is not going to be a book for women. And him going, oh, sweetie, you're not my target market. Ooh, buddy, you don't know what I'm into, and assuming that I'm not your target market is a mistake. Don't go out of your way to disenfranchise people who might enjoy your book by putting a crappy cover on it and then talking crap to the people who are like, ooh, that cover doesn't work, particularly when you ask them for feedback. Don't do it. Not a good look. Hi, it's me. I have an opinion. Is anybody surprised? No. I've been hanging out on Facebook, which is probably bad for my blood pressure, but I actually came across a bunch of people who think that Ingram Spark and KDP and Lulu and so on are publishers. And given the widespread nature of this confusion, I wanted to put it out there that they're not publishers. In fact, they are actually distributors. So what they do is they print your book and they send it to stores or to customers or what have you, just like Barnes & Noble is a distributor. If you're using their Nook app, and Kobo, and all those other ones. They're distributors. They are not publishers. Do not make that mistake. Because if you say, I got my book published, and all you did was pay the money to upload it to Ingram. Ingram didn't pick you up because they're not a publisher. You paid them to print and distribute your book, which is fine. I mean, go ahead and do that. I use Ingram Spark. That's how my company distributes books for the most part. We use a combination of Ingram Spark and Amazon, because if we don't use Amazon, they get kind of grumpy about whether or not things are in stock or not. So, but we upload to both. And we also use Ingram Spark's ebook distribution, which distributes everywhere except Amazon, because if you've uploaded a book to Amazon in the last 2 years, you can't use Ingram Spark to do it because Amazon's predatory like that. Anyway, I just kind of wanted to clear that up because apparently it's a thing that people think, and I wanted to make sure that no one kind of falls into that trap, because no, they're not book publishers. They're book printers or book distributors. They are not book publishers. You don't need an agent to talk to them. They won't offer you editing services. They might offer, like, you can purchase some services from them, but they're not a hybrid press. They're not a publisher. They are just a distributor who sometimes offers services. So don't get yourself caught up there. I mean, yes, you can say your book is published if you've uploaded things to them. That's fine. Just don't say you've got a publisher and then name Ingram Spark, because anybody who knows anything about the industry is going to go, ooh, sweetie, you made a mistake. So, one of those things. Hope you're having a great day.